Hi, my name is Jenny and I'm a second year medical student at the University of Auckland. So I did first year biomedical sciences last year in 2021, and at the beginning of this year, 2022, I've had so many students come up to me asking questions about biomed, more about what does the year look like, what papers do you do, and just how does uni even work? And that makes sense because that was literally me last year as well. The main form of advice that I got was from just directly going and talking to older students, but not everyone is comfortable doing that, and not everyone has exposures to situations where they can do that. So I thought I would just put it out there publicly so that everyone has access to that information. Mainly because biomed can be such a stressful year and the transition between high school and uni is so big. So that's why I'm making this video, to share some tips and advice for the different papers that you do in biomed to make your life a bit easier and to give you a bit of a heads up at what is going to be a crazy year and one that you will probably never ever forget. But yeah, before I start, just to put it out there, this is my personal opinion. Don't take it as something that's set in stone because this will differ between person to person. But yeah, let's just get straight into it then. Chem 110. Now Chem 110 is one of the 3 core papers that you will have in semester 1. So let's start with lectures. In terms of lectures, buy the course guide. For those who don't know what the course guide is, it's basically a big book that consists of lecture notes and also lab notes. And depending on the course, sometimes the lecture guide will have like full notes that you actually need to know, or summary notes that you're going to have to take extra notes in the lectures. But for Chem 110, the lecture notes are so useful. They are basically going to be your complete set of notes, and there are spaces to like fill in the blank, put in words, work out practice questions, etc. And they complement the chemistry lectures really well. I would definitely recommend to buy the course guide. Now, in terms of content, it is beneficial to have done chemistry in level 2 or even level 3 in NCEA, because the content that you learn at uni is built off from level 2 and level 3 knowledge. For example, you have spectroscopy, you have organics, but like a lot more reactions. You're going to have acids and bases, which is basically your aqueous paper, and then you have kinetics, which is a bit of mathematics. For some reason, the mathematics sections in chemistry were the sections that were the most difficult, or more people found difficult. But yeah, if you did chemistry in level 2 and level 3, you'll definitely have a good foundation to Chem 110. Now, in terms of resources, there is a textbook that they recommend. I personally didn't use it that much, but it is there to aid you, to provide you extra support. So if you want it, then you can get it, but some people might not find it beneficial. In terms of textbooks, don't buy them because they are really expensive. You can find them online as a PDF. They can just download, and that's just a better option. I'll also put the link to it down below just in case you can't find it online. The next resources is Best Choice. Now, Best Choice will be your best friend during Chem 110. Not going to lie, it is such an amazing resource and it's free. What you want to be doing with Best Choice is using it throughout the year, not only when you're struggling with certain content, but to reinforce your understanding. You want to be continuously doing practice questions and testing your knowledge. So use it throughout the year. Do not leave it to the last minute, because what you can do with Best Choice is, if you're you can get points on Best Choice, and based on those points you can sometimes reallocate some of the weighting from your midterm test to your final exam. And a lot of people didn't know that, and they'd never used Best Choice, and then everyone was rushing to do that at the end of the year. So definitely use it throughout the year. Okay, let's move on to labs now. So I did not know what labs meant in uni, and I was so stressed. I thought that it was something where you could not talk to anyone, you had to do like this test every single week or something. And I was really nervous, but trust me, that is the complete opposite of labs. So in terms of the format, you have your course guide, and in it there will be the lab guide. So you do your pre-reading for that lab, and then for Chem 110 you will have to do a pre-lab quiz. Then you go into the lab, you do have an assessment sheet that you have to fill out while you're doing like the experiments and stuff, and then you hand it in at the end of the lab, and then you go home, do a post-lab quiz on Canvas, and then that's it. So what you want to do is you want to look at the marking rubric, which they do give it to you. before you go into the lab. So that basically tells you what you need to look out for when you are doing the experiment or filling out the assessment sheet. In the labs, you get paired with a lab partner, and you can talk to them as much as you want, but you can also literally talk to anyone else in the lab. So if you have any questions, you can go to other people who are doing the lab with you, or you will have a teaching assistant for your specific group, and you can ask them any question you want about the experiment, and they will be more than happy to help you. So yeah, do not think that you are alone. You have a lot of people who you can go to ask questions about. And I do definitely recommend that as well. If you are stuck, do ask questions, because everyone will be willing to help, and your teaching assistant might also give you the answers or hint at the answers for your assignment sheet. The one thing you do need to know about chem labs is that they can be really time pressured because you're doing a lot of experiments. So you want to know what you are doing really well before you actually go into the lab, and you want to make sure you're setting like time deadlines. So I'm going to finish this in this amount of time and then do this in the next amount of time, so that you stay on track and you don't fall behind and then you're unable to complete the assignment sheet. For the labs, the resources that you need are a lab coat, lab glasses, a $2 coin to have access to the lockers. You want to bring in your lab guide and also stationery pens, etc. Alright, the last thing for Chem 110 are the tests and the exam. Now this can change. As I said, I did Biomed in 2021. It could change in the future years, but when I did it, the mid-sem test and the exam were short answer questions as well as MCQs. So the thing with Chem is do a lot of practice papers and do not leave them until the last minute. You want to be doing them continuously. Even if you haven't finished learning all the content, do the practice papers for the questions that you have learned, because the thing with Chem 110 is that the format of the practice papers are the same throughout the year, and so it's really easy to see the pattern of questions that they're going to ask, and really easy to see how many marks are allocated to that. So what areas do I need to focus my learning on to get the most marks? The more exposure that you can get to the different practice questions you will get, the better you will be prepared for your exam. Also, you apparently can't use a graphics calculator, or you couldn't when I did it, so try and get a regular calculator. Kind of weird because at NCA they say you need a graphics calculator, then you come to uni and they're like, nah, we don't, so just have both. Okay, that's it for Chem 110. Let's move on to the next core paper, PopHlth 111. Alright, so let's start with lectures. So PopHlth 111 doesn't have a course guide, so don't worry about buying one because there really isn't one. In terms of resources, they do recommend a textbook, which they will once again tell you about, and they also do recommend doing all of the pre-readings that they have in their library section. Definitely do the pre-readings because they do assess you on them, and they did, when I did Biomed, explicitly say which pre-readings that you should definitely do, so listen out for that. In terms of the content, unlike Chem 110 where it's like really sciencey, PopHlth is more about population health, managing diseases, how to prevent diseases, etc. So it's really wordy. I decided to type up my notes rather than write them because it was just more efficient use of my time. There are 4 modules. So for the first module, you have a little PDF file that they give you called Gate Notes. Learn that really well. The thing about PopHlth is you have to understand the concepts really, really well, because in the mid-sem test and mainly the mid-sem test actually, they like to change small wordings around so that you get confused as to whether that was the actual wording or something else. So learn it really, really well. And listen out for lecturers who specifically state which lecture slides will be examinable, etc. Let's move on to tutorials. So PopHlth 111 doesn't have labs, unlike Chem 110, but they have tutorials instead. The format of these tutorials are in smaller classes where you have a teaching assistant or tutor who basically is there to help you reinforce the learning that you learned in lectures, but they also include information that will be extra, which they didn't have time to cover in the lectures. And that will be assessed in the exams as well. So a small section of the tutorials is a group-based project. So you're put into groups of like 5 or 6 people, and you get given a disease, and then you have to do a group-based research project, where you research about the disease, look at interventions, look at the causes of the disease, etc. So one important thing you want to do is put in the work that you're assigned to do or have to do, because each member will have quite a bit they have to do. So if you're not contributing, then that's bad. And it's also important to contribute because your peers will be peer marking you at the end of the project and giving you points based on how much you contributed. So yeah, it would be a good idea if you did your work. You will have to work on most of it outside of class, so you will have to put in quite a few extra hours to finish it off. Another section of the tutorials is teaching MCQs. So at the end of one tutorial, they'll be giving you MCQ questions where you will have to use the time outside of class to prep for the MCQs with your group, and then the next lesson or the next tutorial, they will tell you to basically teach it to the class, and the class can ask questions and you should be prepared to answer those questions. That's basically teaching the entire concept of you learn something really well when you teach it. And so yeah, that's tutorials. Moving on to tests and exams. So PopHlth 111 has an mid-sem test, which is MCQ, and then an exam, which is short answer questions. The exam is not only just short answer questions though, there's like fill in the blank, match the following, some small calculations, etc. So it's a bit more interactive in a way. You can't use a calculator in either exams, and as I said before, the mid-sem exams, you really want to watch out for the subtle change in wording, because that's what trips a lot of people out. Sad thing about PopHlth 111 is that they do not give answers for the exams. So the best way to go about that is you want to be maybe doing them with a friend, or maybe trying to get the answers from a friend that you know has already worked it out with other people. Or you could go to the office hours that they have, which is basically when a lecturer is in the office and you can go and talk to them about questions or anything. They will not directly give you the answers, but they will hint at whether you are in the right track or on the wrong track, and that should hopefully help you. Let's move on to the last core paper of semester 1, and that is BioSci 107. Alright, lectures. So BioSci 107 does have a course guide. I did buy it as well, but wasn't that useful. I had an iPad with me, and so I preferred to just download the PDF onto my iPad so I can just annotate it, because the course guides are quite heavy and you don't want to be carrying around that the entire day. So yeah, if you do have an iPad, then definitely don't buy it. You can just use the PDF version, but the thing is, the lab guides are also in the course guide, so you will have to bring a printed out lab sheet every single time you go into a lab. So yeah, it's like a weighing up whether you want to be printing it at home and then bringing it to the labs, or you want to buy the course guide so that you already have it with you. In terms of the content now, this is a really content heavy paper. I remember my first 1 week of BioSci 107 and I was like literally shocked, because the PowerPoints were like 60-70 slides, and at that point that was completely new to me, and then later on did I realize that the rest of uni would be like that, you know? So you will definitely be shocked in the first week, but it does get easier because you get used to that. And one thing you want to know is that everyone is on the same page. You're not alone, so don't think that this is just a you thing and that you have to like really get onto it and do a lot of work and stuff like that. Everyone's on the same page, so don't stress too much about it. You will get there. A key thing with learning BioSci 107 content, or just science content in general, zoom out, because you're going to be given a lot of minute details or smaller details for almost everything, and don't learn that or go into it instantly. Zoom out, look at the bigger picture, see why you're learning what you're learning, what is the purpose for each concept. And then once you understand that general idea, then you can zoom in, learn that, zoom in a bit more, learn the smaller details, etc. That really helps to prevent burnout, and that was an advice I was given by an older student last year, and it really helped as well. So zoom out. Also, just a heads up, if you learned the cells external in NCEA, then you are a bit, I don't want to say ahead, but you're a bit more prepared for BioSci 107, because one entire module or topic is cells, and I didn't do cells in high school in level 2 or level 3, which was kind of weird. So then I come to cells and I'm like, whoa, this is all new content for me. whereas Cambridge students have already learnt it in their syllabus. But don't worry if you haven't done it yet, if you haven't learned cells, because it's not too difficult. Even though some people will already know that content, it doesn't put them at a really unfair advantage, right? You can definitely catch up to that. It's definitely doable. So now, resources. The textbook is really helpful. This is one textbook that I would totally recommend you read, not only to aid your learning, but also sometimes you will have to read it because the lecturers just say, go read these pages and make notes on them because I'm not going to be teaching you. So yeah, do use the textbook, and the diagrams on it are really, really useful as well. Another thing I found beneficial with BioSci 107 was just watching YouTube videos. So YouTube videos weren't a way of learning for me in high school. I never did that. Then I come to uni and I find it hard to visualize concepts in my mind, especially anatomy, when it comes to anatomy. So go on, find YouTube videos, and they will just make your learning so much easier and so much more efficient. Also, if you're confident with BioSci 107 when you finish it, or if you learn everything really well, it will set you up so well for BioSci 106, 101, and MedSci 142 in semester 2. So moving on to the labs for BioSci 107. The format is similar to Chem, where you have a pre-reading and then you might have a quiz, you might not, I can't remember. But I personally found them easier. The environment is actually a lot more chiller than Chem 110 labs, because you're just sitting down at your table and you're just working with the people around you to fill out an assignment sheet, and TAs will be walking all around. So if you do not know anything, ask them and they will most likely again give you the answers to the assignment sheet. But the best way to actually ask questions is you tell them what your understanding is, and then they will find whether it's something that's wrong or that's right, and then they just easily correct it rather than saying, oh, I don't know what this means, can you please tell me? Give it a go, because that helps you learn better. There's probably a lot of rumors that the embryology lab is the hardest, and so a lot of people buy clay beforehand to practice doing the embryo. I don't think you really need to spend like 20-30 bucks to practice that. Just go into the lab and they'll tell you the key things that you need to do. A lot of people get hung up on the fact that it has to look like pretty or like perfect, but really no, you just need to have the correct things in the correct places with the correct size, made with the correct material that they give you. That's literally all there is. So have fun, because it is kind of a DIY arts and crafts kind of thing, but they will tell you what they're looking out for, and they do reinforce so many times that it's not prettiness or perfection, it's just making sure that all the biological things are on the embryo. And now exams and tests. So both the exam and the MCQ, or the test, is both the exam or the test is MCQ. I think the BioSci test is the first test that you'll ever do in uni in Sem 1, and a lot of people say that if you don't do well in this, like, you're not going to get into med. Debatable. Just do your best and see how it goes. If you don't do as well as you thought you would have done, use that as a big learning point, because then you can reevaluate and see how your study techniques went, what you need to change, how you should better prep for the next mid-sem test that you have coming up in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So don't hate yourself for it, because it's fine. Everything's new. We all were nervous and scared before that test. If things don't do well, just learn from it and move on. Focus on doing well in the next one. For the mid-sem test and also the exams for Sem 1, you will have cheat sheets as well, so you can use that to put like images and diagrams that you won't memorize on it. But yeah, that's BioSci 107. So the last paper that you will be taking in semester 1 is not a core paper, and that's your general education paper, or what we call Gen Ed. Now a Gen Ed is unique to the University of Auckland, and it's a paper that you take to be exposed to another area of study or learning that you wouldn't really be exposed to if you did your normal degree. Now, doing a gen ed is a great way to meet new students, new friends, and also different lecturers at the university. For my case, I took TheoRel, but you definitely want to take a gen ed paper that, one, you are definitely interested in, two, it is in the correct semester that you can take a gen ed. So for biomedical science students, that can be in first semester only. And three, it fits with your timetable. Now, this is a really hard one because in your biomed timetable, it's really set in stone, and so it's not flexible. Therefore, the amount of gen ed papers that you can take will decrease. And I think TheoRel was the only one that I could actually do, so I just went with it because I had no other option. I'll put the link for the gen eds that are available to health sci and biomed students down below. And I would also recommend that you search on Google for student reviews for the different gen eds just to see how other students have felt doing that gen ed, because even though that does differ from person to person, it's still a good gauge of what it's like. So I'll put the link down below for a website that you can go to. So that is the end for the reviews of the papers you will be doing in semester 1. I just accumulated everything I wish someone had told me or things that someone did tell me, and I found it super beneficial. Hopefully you were able to take something useful away from it, and I will definitely be making a similar one for semester 2, so watch out for it. And let me know in the comments if there are any other videos that you want me to do that relate to biomed. Bye! See you guys in the next one!